Good morning, everyone. I hope you are all having a blessed Sabbath. Thank you for the continued support and comments that I've been receiving in my past videos, especially one of the main videos where I've explained how I came upon to, moving my direction towards Seventh-day Adventist. Uh, Thank you for the continued support, for the subscriptions that I've received, but also the comments. I've read through many of the comments and heard from quite a few of you your journey. Not many of us have been born and raised in a Seventh-day Adventist household, so a lot of us, God has certainly opened our eyes and allowed us to guide back into the right path. And I realized that with over 8 billion people in this world, right, there's only a small remnant of us that know the truth. And I mentioned in my very first video that the intention behind why I'm doing a series on YouTube, I won't say a series, it's nothing formal, but it's really to share my testimony, is to get as much make sure that my message is being sent across many people as much as possible, which is why I started this on a digital platform. And I feel more connected. I feel like I have a bigger and a stronger community that supports the decisions and the choices that I'm making, that hoping that you know God's God approves it and sees that that is my intention. But of course, this would not be possible without the support that I'm getting from our Seventh-day Adventist community. So please continue to share my videos to get my testimony across. At the end of the day, the more we can save, the better. But it all ends up in every individual's perspective, if they actually want to receive the true word from God or continue on the path that they're on. Um, continuing back to what I was discussing in my past two videos, is how I came across this new faith into Seventh-day Adventist. I've never heard of Seventh-day Adventist, but I had always had that strong connection. One thing I did not mention to everyone is that Seventh-day Adventist, though I never grew up in that household or understood what the beliefs are, or what we follow in, what are the ideologies and the principles behind it, I still had a connection with it, even though I was growing up in an Islamic home, an Islamic family. See, you can say when I was in grade 1 and grade 2, I was in a private school. And one thing we know about Seventh-day Adventists is that God flourished us in Seventh-day Adventists, where we flourish in different areas, from the medical field to through schools. We were flourishing extremely well, and in every aspect. And I was studying in a private school, say from grade 1 to grade 2. And that private school was a Seventh-day Adventist school. See, I'm always looking at it where it is like I never knew that I had that connection until much later on, when I started to discuss more about it with my friend. I realized that, well, wait a minute, I have been associated one way or the other to Seventh-day Adventist. Maybe not recently, maybe not so in depth, but I had that personal connection with it. And it's so interesting because back then in the province of Quebec, if immigrant parents were moved to Quebec, their very first child has to attend a private school, right? But a bill was passed around that time when I was in grade 2, where the very first child does not have to continue to be in a private school for the next kids to go into public school. So when that bill was passed, my parents took me out of course, that private school and put me in a public school. But it's so interesting because years later, it just occurred to me that wait, this school, like it has the word Adventist. So I started to Google about it. I couldn't remember the full name of that private school because it's been years. I didn't even think about it, and it never occurred to me. But I one day just clicked to me in my memory that I did go to a private school, and the name, because it was a three-word named private school. It said Adventist. I'm like, there has to be some sort of connection to Seventh Day Adventist. So I started Googling it. I started to look into the history of the private school, and behold, it was actually founded by a Seventh Day Adventist believer. Right, they built this private school, and the school was amazing from what I remember. Very amazing teachers, and of course, if you look at today's education system, they don't talk so much about religion. You have the ethics and religion course, but it's not in depth of religion, or especially the religion that we expect that they would be talking about to a certain degree. So when I found it, I was stunned. I was very stunned because even when I was so young, I had that connection, right? As if it was more of like God was like I already knew that this is where I belong. God led me to go to that school, and it wasn't done, coincidentally. Like everything was planned. It was that everything that was happening in my life, it was already predetermined, much determined, right? So it was just beautiful when I saw that connection, and I was amazed. I stopped, and I could not, like, was just amazed how it was a full circle moment, almost, right? From the fact that I went to a Seventh Day Adventist school, though I didn't know so much about Seventh Day Adventist, but the fact that it was such a close to home where I had that connection, and then years later, I'm back at it, where I'm studying about it, where I'm trying to just rediscover myself in a new faith. I had that connection all along. So it just felt amazing that it didn't come out of nowhere, right? Of course, God opened my eyes and was leading me to the right path, and I'm just fortunate, and I feel very, very blessed that I listened to that calling. I didn't reject it. I didn't think that this was foreign, this is not right, this is wrong. I didn't reject it in that sense, but I kept an open heart, looked at the facts, looked at history, right? Looked at the Bible, studied it, right, with my friend, and I realized that, oh my goodness, this is it. This is the truth, right? So, going back to more of a present day, when I look at this, when my friend was helping me to read the book of Daniel and Revelation, I realized that what I studied in history classes as I was growing up in school, you see the four kingdoms and what's happened in the French Revolution, right? What happened in Babylon, in Medo-Persia. Then you look at Greece. Then you have the Roman Empire, and then you have like 10 different. It was split into 10 different, and then you have the French Revolution. So when I knew everything of what I have studied in history, what was revealed in history books, and from what you go into any TV series or educational programs that talk about the history, like I know that by heart. But then when I start reading it through the Bible, I'm like, these scriptures were written much before all these events have happened, right? And I'm wondering, like, how could this be? How is that possible, right? And I'm trying to find a reasonable explanation. What could explain for all these things that are laid out I know there's symbolism in it, but if you look closely into the symbolism of the book of Revelation, you can see that everything has been laid out much before these events happened. How is that possible? I haven't seen anything like that in Quran, right? And I'm not to bash the holy book for Islam and the Quran, but I haven't seen uh, such revealing facts and truth in the Quran like I saw in the Bible. So when I was studying the Bible and I looked through it through history and saw the symbolism, right? The golden cup, or like, you see every little symbolism that's put down in Revelation. You go into Google Images, what do you see, right? And so it's just amazing to me that this is something that I recognized, and I was still at awe when my friend kind of dissected the book of Revelation and from a historical point of view. And I was still shocked because I haven't seen that in Quran, and I'm thinking that what I believed in all these years wasn't even right. You have to understand that it wasn't easy for me to leave one religion and go into a different faith, especially a religion that is so deeply rooted in their faith, right? And it's about numbers too. At the time, I was looking at it as numbers. Like there's like 1 billion, or I guess 2 billion Muslims in this world. How can we all be wrong, right? And I was battling with that, but I'm also thinking that, like, all these years I studied the Quran. I had my parents that were strong, not strong believers. Over time they did become strong believers in Islam, but it was just like, even growing up, to seeing my grandmother, everyone, like, they will be fasting for 30 days, they would be observing Eid, they'll be praying, reading the Quran. Like, I saw such deep devotion in faith that I'm like, how can we be wrong? There's no way we can be wrong. We have to be right. When I see that devotion, when I see kids in the Quran school, right? When I see even my friends in high school, in elementary school, where they are deeply rooted in that faith, I'm wondering that, can we actually be wrong? Right? Like, to the point where I started to get concerned that I spent over 20 years of my life believing in a faith, or being fully devotional in that faith, that I was concerned that I may be wrong, right? My friend had explained to me it's not about numbers, right? Just because there's 2 billion people, 3 billion people, like, this world is filled with so many people with different backgrounds, different religions, different faiths and cultures. It doesn't matter, even if we are represented by a big number. Look at Catholic, right? They are much bigger in numbers in comparison to Catholicism, right? And but look how severely erroneous their faith is in, right? How they believe in the Pope, they believe in the exact opposites that we see in the Bible, or the things that they're not supposed to be doing, right? How erroneous they are. And Islam is not an exception to it either, right? And the Bible was very clear that at the end of the day, we're going to have a very small remnant. There will be very few of us that will still stick to the truth to the very end, right? And it is sad to see that it's going to be a small remnant, but that is what's going to happen at the end. It's not going to be 2 billion, 3 billion people that's going to be saved. It's going to be a very small number. And when my friend asked, like, do you want to be part of that number where you are on God's side? I'm like, absolutely, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, my life here is not going to be here forever, right? This world is not meant to be lasting forever. Our lives on this world is not meant to be forever. So, of course, I want the everlasting truth. I want to receive the everlasting gospel. I want to believe in everything that is the actual truth and follow that guide, follow that steps. And so, that's where my friend said that, well, this is where you need to think and decide for yourself what is the truth, right? So I'm very blessed that our Yeshua guided me to this path and allowed me to meet this friend. He's still a very good friend in my life that helps me through in understanding the Bible. At times where I may be weak in my faith, right, or maybe I'm not reading the Bible enough, right. So he always tells me that you need to be studying the Bible as much as possible. You look at Acts 5:29, where it's very clear that says that obey God, not men, right? We are flooded with news outlets, right? You look at media, you look at everything that's happening around the world. You have political figures that are telling us to do this, to do that. This is what we're going to do to make it better. Even in my own workplace, I do a corporate job where I have my CEO that had a town hall couple of days ago. He was saying that as a company we're doing an amazing job, we are firing all cylinders, right? So we continue to do what we have to do, but there's going to come to a point where if I have to work on Saturday, on Sabbath, I'm gonna need to quit that job, right? Because you are coming in between my faith with my Lord, with my Yeshua, right? So I know that these are troubling times that are going to be coming, where I know that there will be a point where I'm going to have to leave my job, or there are things that I am blessed with today that, or unfortunate that I have, that's going to be more challenging down the road when I see things are starting to come and impact my faith with the Lord, right? We're going to come across different factors, various factors that is going to challenge us. You have the blue laws in Virginia. If you don't know about the blue laws, look it up, search it up. It's all there, right? There are many people that are sleeping on what is going on. The 2025 project, the Sunday law, all these things are coming so rapidly that majority of the population are not even seeing what's coming. My friend and I work in the same company, and we had a coworker, a colleague earlier this week that is actually deeply rooted in Islam, right? He is a Muslim man, family man that has two daughters, two grown daughters, and he's always been very, very devoted Muslim. Drinks beer here and there, right? And so obviously he's not following completely the Islamic requirements, but he's a devoted a Muslim man, right? And he's never questioned his faith, never questioned it. So when my friend talked to that coworker related to work, it just came up where that coworker had asked my friend, like, what do you think of the whole political crisis that's happening in the States, especially since Charlie Kirk's passing, right? And they got into this whole conversation about it, that to the point where my friend asked, have you heard about the blue laws, right? And then the Sunday law. And of course, my coworker, he actually reports to me, said, no, I never heard of it. And my friend said, search it up. It's very interesting. And behold, he had no idea that this was happening. You don't see it in mainstream media. You don't see it in news outlets, right? Promoting or talking about this. But you can see, behind the scenes, the King of the North that we study in the book of Revelation, is the papacy. The papacy will heal from the deadly wound, and they're just waiting to spring back. And when they do spring back, we know that those are the challenges that will come across. We're going to be set up in very difficult situations where we have to make appropriate choices. We have to make the right choices. We have to make decisions, right? Where we have to decide what is more important, my faith to our God, or for my personal interests, right? So it's things like this that ultimately we will get to that point. And we obviously have a lot of political figures in the government that are leading this world very blindly. You look at Matthew 15:14, where what happens when you have the blind leading the blind? They both fall in the pit, right? So it's things like that where we have political figures in the government that are leading, who are already blind as it is, who have no idea what's going on, but they're going to lead the rest of the population in that way. And at the end of the day, you can't blame each other, right? Us as the mainstream population, we can't blame that government, because at the end of the day, we had a choice to make. We could decide for ourselves what is the difference between the right and wrong. So, but yeah, I was watching a sermon earlier today. If you haven't heard, but I every Sabbath take notes for sermons that are done by Pastor Stephen Bohr. He is actually located in Fresno, in the United States, and he holds regular sermons that I tend to watch and study every Sabbath. And one of the sermons he had today was talking about, was really studying about Mrs. White's take on Revelation 11:40 to 45. He mentioned it, and I will completely believe in it, that she hasn't really mentioned or discussed in detail about Revelation 11:40 to 45. But if we connect the dots and we see everything that is leading up, that has already been foretold in the Bible, it's coming to life. It is definitely coming to life. Of all the religious scriptures and books that we see, the Bible, to its core, that's not been filtered or impacted in any way, is the source of truth, and we can see it coming to life every step of the way. It's scary. I don't know if many of you have felt it here for the last few months. Time is going by quickly, right? I hear from my coworkers, I hear from my family, they're saying that time is going by quickly. Why is time going by quickly? The end of times is coming very soon. So we don't have a lot of time, and it's so important that we're rooted in our faith. Even on Sabbath, I'm not perfect, right? I could do more on Sabbath, and this is something that I'm working towards. And I hope you're all doing the same, that we can hopefully become part of that small remnant that will be lasting at the end of times. So thank you so much for continuing to watch my video, and I hope it does inspire you. Please do give me comments for sharing your personal testimonies, or anything that will encourage me to continue to be stronger in my faith. But of course, share my videos too, because at the end of the day, I want my testimony to reach as many people, not just in our Seventh-day Adventist community, but also to people who are in that middle zone where they're still contemplating that, should I leave my faith and go into Seventh-day Adventist? It is a difficult decision. It wasn't an easy decision for me, because I almost felt naked. If you look at it from a metaphor perspective, that I'm leaving a religion that has been so rooted to me, that I've become so comfortable with, and I'm stepping into a new faith, right? So I know it's a difficult decision. It's not an easy one. And so continue to support our brothers and sisters that are going through that trial. Thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you all continue to enjoy your Sabbath.